takeaways we had from our previous meeting was our request for some kind of a hotline or an 800 number to be able to have cannabis industry individuals report variances in people's behavior. For example, business owners that are not obeying the law, municipal leaders who are not respecting the law, law enforcement officers who are policing the citizenry without proper respect for the cannabis laws themselves. And you'd mentioned that there is an 800 number that exists which would satisfy that particular need. Could you talk about that for a moment?
Well, I'm going to send this over to my Chief of Ops, Christina Grassi, and have her talk a little bit about sort of the functioning of our office. And, you know, we get calls for all kinds of different matters. We have so many different divisions in the office that do many different things, even just what you talked about. Some of those matters would go to one division, some would go to another. So Christina, can you sort of walk everybody through how that works with our office when we have, you know, a citizen or a resident who is calling in seeking assistance from the AG's office?
Yes. So there's two ways really to get to our office, and it's just what's more convenient for the person who wants to make the request. The first way is we have an email address that you can send complaints to. That's MIAG@michigan.gov. So MIAG@michigan.gov. And so you can just send an email to us with whatever the issue is, and it's triaged by a team inside our department. The other way you can do it is by calling our office. It's 517-335-7622. Again, 517-335-7622. Whether you send the email or the phone number, what happens is it goes to an attorney in a division depending on the content of the issue. So, you know, cannabis issues can take many different shapes and forms, as I can tell by the questions you guys asked, right? Some of them have to do with taxes, for example. Some of them have to do with licensing issues. Some of them has to do with criminal issues. So whoever receives the email looks at it and says, well, this is cannabis, but does it have to do with tax, for example? If it does, we actually have a division that only does tax work at our department. So it goes to the tax attorney, and then they're the ones that respond to your question. If it has to do with licensing, for example, Michelle is here today. Michelle is the division chief of our licensing division. So she would assign it to one of her attorneys and they would respond to you directly. So what we try to do is have them come in and then send them to subject matter experts who can answer your question. Sometimes people ask our office questions and it really is more appropriate for our client agency. So maybe one of the agencies that we represent or the licensing agency in this issue. And what they'll do is they'll give you a contact number, name from somebody who you can get to right away who will be able to answer your question from the client. So that's the nice thing when you go into this system that we have is we try to provide you with as much information as we can. And if we don't have it, because we work with our client agencies so much and because we know the stuff that they do, we can get you to the person at the state who can help you. And I know that's sometimes difficult for people who aren't familiar with the state. So we try to be helpful. You use whichever is most convenient for you. I apologize right now with COVID, it's been a little bit difficult. We have a significant increase in some of the complaints that are coming to our office, but we do try to get back as soon as we can.
This being an election year, there's always a trend of business owners trying to influence their employees on whom to vote for local or state or federal elections. That's not legal. And if people see activity in their workplace trying to influence their vote one way or another, is that something they should report to the Attorney General's office also?
Yes, I would say absolutely you should. And in fact, we are becoming very, very active in this space involving voter intimidation, voter suppression, the disenfranchising of voters. Many of you, unfortunately, might be aware of the fact that there were robocalls that were made into the city of Detroit just yesterday that was providing, you know, massive misinformation to Detroit residents, indicating that if they fill out an application to vote absentee, that it can be used for all kinds of other purposes involving their credit score, or if they have outstanding warrants, and that they would go on some lists. I mean, it was crazy. The threats really that were inherent in that robocall about all kinds of detrimental activities that a resident or, you know, a voter would be subjected to in the event that they signed up to vote absentee. And of course, none of that is true. So what we are trying to do, we are handling cases involving voter suppression and voter intimidation and voter fraud or anything of that nature should come to our office. We are working hand in hand, coordinating with the Secretary of State on this issue. We're also actually working with the governor's office on this issue. So if there are those kinds of efforts afoot, please call us, let us know. Please know that we are being very, very active in this arena between now and the election, during the course of the election. And it's not just employers. I mean, honestly, we had the President of the United States make a statement about sending the military and sending federal law enforcement and sending sheriffs and U.S. attorneys to polling locations. This was an actual thing that the president said. It's 100% illegal, and not just because of one law or two laws or three laws. There might be at least a half a dozen federal statutes, another half dozen state statutes, and then the United States Constitution, for instance, that prohibit that kind of activity. So unfortunately, those kinds of statements are out there, those kinds of threats are out there, that kind of intimidation is out there. And when it occurs, we want to know about it and we will investigate it.